I'm TJ Kirk, and I'm going to look today at a video by Dennis Prager of Prager University called If There Is No God, Murder Isn't Wrong. It was published on March 20th and currently has about 430,000 views, has about 7,800 upvotes, 6,900 downvotes. It deserves, I think, many more downvotes, not just because I personally disagree with it, although I do, but also because it's just a demonstrably fallacious argument that's riddled with low-grade, intellectually inept horse shit. So let's take a look at that.
Do you believe that good and evil exist?
Well, I don't know. Are you asking me if they exist as anything more than a human concept designed to control people's behavior? Because if you're asking me that, then my answer is no.
The answer to this question separates Judeo-Christian values from secular values.
Not really. Plenty of secular people hold to the idea of there being some form of objective moral truth. Now, I'm not one of them, but they're out there. And further, yes, all these Judeo-Christian faiths do claim to have objective moral truth, but you'll find that they don't actually agree on what those moral truths are. Like homosexuality, some Christians say it's fine, some say it's outright evil. Polygamy, some say it's okay. Hell, some even say it's what God wants for us. And then others say it's a grave and terrible sin. Working on the Sabbath. Christians of old, and some Christians today, they'll fucking kill you for that shit. And it's not even a big deal to most Christians now. These are just a few examples of like fluctuating Christian morality. To say that this religion offers an objective moral framework is ludicrous on the face of it, but let's hear more of your argument before I, make such a determination.
Is murder wrong?
Yep.
Is it evil?
Sure.
Nearly everyone would answer yes, but now I will pose a much harder question. How do you know?
How do I know? Well, it benefits all of us, I think, to live in a cooperative society rather than each of us just being reliant solely on ourselves. I think the social structure we've created is very impressive. Like if I have a sandwich, every ingredient on the sandwich came from elsewhere and was the sweat of someone else's labor. And we have to, in order to get that sandwich to me, there has to be an interstate highway system, a railway system to get produce and stuff across the country, monetary system to where I have money that has enough value to pay for those goods that make up the sandwich. All sorts of complex social systems have to exist for me to be able to get that sandwich. All the modern conveniences that we take for granted are really just the fruits of an intricate symphony of human cooperation and human labor. The Ferengi from Star Trek would call it the Great Material Continuum. And as soon as I heard him mention that, it was something I appreciated very deeply. If you introduce into that the idea of socially permissible murder, if you and your loved ones are constantly at risk of being murdered, then you don't trust your fellow human beings. You don't trust a societal cooperative. So you can't have a modern society as we think of it. On top of that, no one in society wants to be murdered. No one wants their loved ones murdered. No one wants the person selling them goods or services to be murdered. No one wants their accountant murdered, or their waitress, or anyone that they rely on. And we also, in a larger sense, have empathy for one another. We don't really want to see other people murdered. The idea of taking another human being's life is an affront to most people. Not because of religious morality, but because we understand that when we kill another person, we're putting an end to all that they are and all that they could ever be. We would consider that monstrous for someone to do to us or to someone we care about, and we understand that we would be just as monstrous if we were to do that to someone else and cause all of that suffering.
If I asked you how you know that the Earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong?
I mean, I can provide tremendous amounts of evidence that they destabilize societies by undermining cooperation. I could provide evidence that making any of these things socially permissible would throw our society into chaos, fear, and despair. And to me, that's wrong. But you're right, that's just my opinion. I see, though, that you do have a double standard of evidence here, because you challenge me to prove objective morality when I don't even believe in it. Yet you, who do believe in it, are not expected to provide any evidence of it whatsoever. How does that work? I mean, if you can't prove my position, then my position must be right. How did you spin that, buddy? I'm sorry. When I said this was low-grade horse shit, I actually should have said it was grade A bullshit. Grade A stupid bullshit.
There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts.
Okay, so show me your measurable evidence of God, and then we'll be squared away, right?
In a secular world, there can only be opinions about morality. They may be personal opinions or society's opinions, but only opinions.
What's your point, Dennis? You seem to be making the argument that with God, there is objective morality, but without God, morality is subjective, therefore, God is real. That is a terribly flawed idea. It's an argument from consequences. Your only measure for truth here is that you prefer objective morality to subjective morality. Therefore, objective morality must be true. Well, I prefer to have a big dick and an IQ of 190. Guess what? My preference for that, don't make it so. Just because you emotionally respond better to the idea of there being an objective right and an objective wrong, and they're written in stone and have some weight and deep meaning, just because that's what's satisfying to you, doesn't make that true. You know, and I understand why, because a world where morality is subjective is full of strife and confusion, which, hey, sound like any worlds you know? Well, I guess you haven't read or debated Sam Harris, because he wrote an entire book about objective morality, and he's an atheist. And now I don't think he's right, but he presents some interesting ideas, far more compelling ones than you're offering up, by the way.
Judeo-Christian values are predicated on the existence of a God of morality. In other words, only if there is a God who says murder is murder wrong?
Yeah, but not really. First of all, the God of the Bible makes plenty of exceptions to the no murder clause. I mean, he does sanction quite a few killings in the Bible. But even if we had this God who created us and said murder is wrong, does that really make it objectively true? I mean, if I created the universe exactly as it is today, but I said murder is good, does that mean murder is now objectively good and awesome? I tend to think that even if there was a God, his opinion would be just as subjective as anyone else's. Like if I paint a painting, my interpretation of it isn't automatically the only correct interpretation. Subjectivity still exists. Art takes on new meanings in the minds of its viewers. The objective facts about the painting are that it's made of canvas and paint. And there's blacks and yellows and blues and golds and whatever else. And it has particular dimensions of length and height and width. All of those things, I, as the creator of the painting, do control. But do I control the meaning of the painting? Do I control how people feel about it? Do I control what people think about it? No, I don't. It's my contention that this analogy can be applied to our universe. Even if there were a creator, his or her will would not just translate into objective truth.
Let me make two things clear. First, this doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person. There are plenty of kind and moral individuals who don't believe in God and Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, and then there's just assholes like me.
Second, there have been plenty of people who believed in God who were not good people. Indeed, more than a few have been evil and have even committed evil in God's name. The existence of God doesn't ensure people will do good. I wish it did. The existence of God only ensures that good and evil objectively exist and are not merely opinions.
I'm sorry, but then what does it even matter, dude? Whether murder is subjectively wrong or objectively wrong, people of all ideological stripes still do it or don't do it. So what does it really even mean at the end of the day? Like if I'm God, I can say vanilla ice cream is objectively the worst flavor. Is that going to make people stop liking it if that's what they like? People are still going to either eat it or not eat it based on their own personal tastes. So what does the objectivity really even fucking mean? There's no consequence for eating vanilla, right? You don't die the second it touches your fucking tongue. You just eat it and go about your fucking day. Now maybe I could send you to hell for it, but that's really just me creating an artificial consequence as God. Just as society could create an artificial consequence by making it a crime to eat vanilla ice cream. Where does objectivity come into play there? Nowhere, that's where.
Without God, the words good and evil are just another way of saying I like and I don't like. If there is no God, the statement murder is evil is the same as the statement I don't like murder.
No, like everything else in your video, that's stupid. I don't like pasta salad, okay? I don't like it. I don't like pasta salad. Does that mean I think pasta salad is evil? Those terms are not interchangeable. Prostituting your children is evil. Not because I don't like it, but because it causes harm to people. Evil is that which causes harm to others. If I call you a moron, that might upset you, but it doesn't harm you. If I firebomb your house and poison your dog, I am harming you. There's a difference between disliking something and finding something to be evil. There's a difference between being a jerk and being an evil person. Murder is considered evil because it's an act of severe harm to another human being, not because it's disliked.
Now, many will argue that you don't need moral absolutes. People won't murder because they don't want to be murdered. But that argument is just wishful thinking.
Oh, my fucking what? Wow. You're going to call someone else's arguments wishful fucking thinking? Your IQ and your self-awareness are fucking locked in a contest right now to see which one can go lower. And I don't know who's winning, but they're both putting forth a hell of a fucking effort.
Hitler, Stalin, and Mao didn't want to be murdered, but that hardly stopped them from murdering about 100 million people.
You just admitted that Christianity doesn't stop murderers either. So what's even the point here? I don't know. But you know what? The societies that Hitler and Stalin and Mao presided over still considered murder to be a crime. They were able to murder because they were above the law as dictators. But even they recognized that once they were in power, that you can't allow wanton murder throughout your society. If I traveled back in time to Nazi Germany and I just walked up to another person on the street and bludgeoned them to death with a fucking hammer, I'd face charges. Because there actually hasn't been a single society in all of existence where wanton murder was just perfectly legal. There have been societies where killing was permissible in one circumstance or another, but there's never been a society where anyone could just kill anyone else and the powers that be would just be accepting of it. When societies have allowed that to happen, either through ineptitude or a lack of resources to stop it, those societies have devolved into complete chaos. Think the Congo, think Syria, think all of these broken nations where government has collapsed and law and order is but a distant memory.
It is not a coincidence that the rejection of Judeo-Christian values in the Western world by Nazism and communism led to the murder of all these innocent people.
Communists did reject religious values in order to sublimate the populace to state control, but Nazism was not that anti-religion. This argument has been corrected so many times that I'm shocked it still has to be made. I mean, Hitler's speeches were full of references to religious faith, as was Mein Kampf. And Nazi soldiers who were part of the Wehrmacht, probably not pronouncing that right, they wore belts that read Gott mit uns on them, which means God is with us. Now, there was anti-church and anti-clerical sentiments among high-ranking Nazis. That's true. But this was not imposed on the population in any meaningful way. In 1939, Germany was 54% Protestant and 40% Catholic. Only 1.5% of Germans identified as non-religious. Today, the most atheistic Western country is the Czech Republic, where a good deal of my ancestry is from. 40 to 50% of the population are atheist, and the murder rate there is 0.7 murders per 100,000 people. And those figures are from 2014, and that's among the lowest murder rates on the planet Earth. In the US, where 80% of the people say they're Christians, it's 3.9 murders per 100,000 people. That's 5.5 times higher than the atheistic heathen Czech Republic. In Honduras, 88% of the population are Christians. Their murder rate is 84.6 murders per 100,000. And that's also from 2014. That's 120 times more murder than the atheistic heathen scumfucks in the Czech Republic. Are there tons of other factors at play besides religion? Obviously. But your idea that embracing atheism as a society leads to wanton murder, or that embracing Christianity as a society leads to an abundance of moral goodness, that notion is 100% unequivocally false.
It is also not a coincidence that the first societies in the world to abolish slavery, an institution that existed in every known society in human history, were Western societies rooted in Judeo-Christian values.
Oh, you're a fucking moron, dude. The Bible says nothing in condemnation of slavery. It's 100% supportive of the idea. Exodus 21 offers instructions for the proper maintenance of slaves, including, by the way, the proper way to sell your daughter into slavery. Leviticus explicitly tells you that it's okay to purchase foreign slaves as long as you don't enslave any of your own people. And they were talking to the Israelites at the time. In Ephesians, slaves are instructed to obey their earthly masters with deep fear and respect, and to serve them as you would serve Christ himself. This same line of bullshit is also in 1 Timothy. And in Luke, Jesus himself seems to approve of slavery. The Bible and Judeo-Christian values embraced the institution of slavery for most of history, and their book says nothing explicitly condemning the institution of slavery whatsoever, and says plenty explicitly condoning it.
And so were the first societies to affirm universal human rights, to emancipate women, and to proclaim the value of liberty.
All of which have no fucking support in Scripture. The Bible does not affirm human rights. It affirms that human beings are sinful scum who need to devote themselves to God. It does not emancipate women. It teaches that they are inferior and should never stand in authority over men. It does not proclaim the value of liberty. It tells slaves to obey their masters, and it tells common people to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Intelligence and individuality are not praised anywhere in the Gospels as a virtue.
Today, the rejection of Judeo-Christian values and moral absolutes has led to a world of moral confusion.
Well, early in the video, you said that God wasn't needed to act morally, and now you're saying that the rejection of God is leading to rampant immorality, which isn't even true, based on plenty of the arguments I've already made to you. But the contradiction you have here of, oh, an atheist can be a good person, but an atheist society is automatically bad, even though most of the societies on earth that are atheists today aren't bad.
In the New York Times in March 2015, a professor of philosophy confirmed this. He wrote, "What would you say if you found out that our public schools were teaching children that it is not true that it's wrong to kill people for fun? Would you be surprised? I was." The professor then added, "The overwhelming majority of college freshmen view moral claims as mere opinions."
And they're right. So what?
So then, Whatever you believe about God or religion, here is a fact. Without a God who is the source of morality, morality is just a matter of opinion.
That is not a fact, actually. You haven't demonstrated that God exists. You haven't demonstrated that his opinion would be objective, even if he did exist. You haven't demonstrated that it makes any difference if it is objective. You haven't demonstrated that God is the only possible source of objective morality. You haven't demonstrated how objective morality is superior to subjective morality, and you haven't even demonstrated how objective morality being more preferable in any way makes it more correct. So on no level, sir, is that a fact. You know what's a fact? Today's Slinky has approximately 65 feet of wire if you straighten it out. When the original Slinky came out in 1945, it contained 80 feet of wire. That's a fact. Everything about that is verifiable and provable. What you just said boils down to, if Mario isn't real, then Princess Peach is getting raped in the ass by Bowser right now while 6 Goombas watch. That's not a fact. That's a bunch of fucking gibberish that contains about 20 false premises. If my fictional floobity-doobity don't reel, then my magical skibbity-gibbity don't reel. So I gotta believe. No, you actually don't, and I don't either, and no one else fucking should either. Look, I understand the appeal of objective morality. I understand that we all wish there was some objective standard by which human behavior could be measured. But wishing doesn't make it so, and neither do bad arguments that a fat neckbeard can poke about 1,000,000 holes in without breaking a fucking sweat. I'm TJ Kirk. Peace the fuck out.